Tonight, we're going to explore why a permanent colony on Mars might be the greatest biological mistake in human history. We have spent the last half-century imagining the red planet as humanity's escape hatch, a second Earth waiting for a pioneer's touch, a red sanctuary that will preserve our species from the inevitable end of our home world. We see the sleek glass domes, the glowing terraformed oceans, and the brave explorers in our science fiction. It feels like an inevitable expansion. But the reality of the red planet is not a new beginning. It is a slow, quiet war against the human blueprint, and your body is already losing. By the end of tonight, you're going to understand why the first people to settle Mars won't be the founders of a new civilization. They will be the first generation that evolution begins to erase. To understand the nightmare of the red planet, you must first understand the miracle of the blue one. Here on Earth, survival is a background noise. It is a biological gift you never had to earn. You breathe the air without checking a chemical sensor or fearing a seal failure. You plant a seed in the soil and expect it to give you life. You walk down a street and feel the weight of gravity as a comfort, a constant, invisible guardian that keeps your heart round and your skeletal system solid. On Earth, the environment is your mother. It protects you from the vacuum, filters the radiation of the stars, and provides a chemical equilibrium that is perfectly tuned to your DNA. Home is a place that wants you to exist. But what happens when you leave the mother and walk into the furnace? Mars is not what it seems. It once had everything Earth has today: thick air, blue oceans, and a magnetic shield. But that world is dead. And strangely, oxygen isn't the first thing that will try to kill you. Most people believe the greatest danger is a lack of oxygen. We imagine astronauts gasping for air as their tanks run dry. But strangely, suffocation is a mercy you won't be granted. The real threat is the pressure, or rather the total lack of it. The Martian atmosphere is 1% as thick as Earth's. It is a vacuum in disguise. At this level, you hit the Armstrong limit. This is the point where the boiling point of liquids drops to the temperature of the human body. If your suit fails, the very water in your blood, your eyes, and your lungs would begin to boil at room temperature. You wouldn't just stop breathing. Your body would begin to come apart from the inside out. And yet the sky isn't your only enemy. Strangely, the greatest danger on Mars isn't the thin air above you. It's the ground beneath your boots. We've been taught to see Martian soil as just red dirt, a place to build, a place to grow food. But the chemistry of Mars tells a darker story. The soil is a toxic cocktail of perchlorates, oxidizing salts that act as a persistent chemical weapon against human biology. On Earth, these are industrial chemicals. On Mars, they are everywhere. Once inhaled or ingested over time, they interfere with your thyroid function, essentially cutting the power lines to your body's metabolism. It is as if the very foundation of the planet is actively working against our chemistry. But where did this poison come from? And why is the very ground we walk on trying to dismantle our health? Humanity believes Mars can be fixed. The universe disagrees. We are planetary accidents fine-tuned to 1 g of gravity. Move a human to the red planet and you aren't just changing their address. You are initiating a biological reset. This isn't science fiction. It's what long-duration space medicine already warns us about. Within months, your heart, sensing that its work is now too easy in 38% gravity, will begin to shrink. Your muscles will wither like a dying plant. Your bones, realizing they no longer need to support your full weight, will begin to dump their calcium into your bloodstream. You are literally urinating your own skeleton into your recycling system. We are trying to build a new world using glass people who can never return to the weight of their birth. If our bodies are designed for Earth, what happens to a generation that has never felt the true pull of home? As your body dissolves, so does your connection to the rest of your species. On Earth, help is a phone call away. On Mars, you live behind the 20-minute wall. If a seal fails or a pump breaks, your plea for help travels at the speed of light, yet it still takes 20 minutes to reach Earth. Your family hears your message long after your emergency has already become irreversible. They send a reply, but it arrives to a world of silence. The communication lag isn't just a technical detail. It is a psychological wall that ensures that on Mars, you are truly, profoundly alone. But if help is impossible, why are we so desperate to go? The red mirage is the visual lie that Mars tells us. Through our telescopes, it looks familiar. It looks like the deserts of Arizona or the outback of Australia. We see the dunes and the mountains, and we think we can live there. But this visual similarity is a psychological trap. On Earth, a desert is a place of heat and wind. On Mars, the temperature on a warm summer day might reach 20 degrees, but as the thin sun sets, it plummets to -70 in a heartbeat. The ground is a permafrost of carbon dioxide ice and toxic dust that has never known the touch of a liquid drop of water. We are looking at a graveyard and mistaking it for a frontier. But what is the price of sleeping in a tomb? While you fight the cold and the soil, you must also face the siege from above. Mars has no magnetic heart to deflect the high-energy heavy ions from deep space. On Earth, the atmosphere is our sanctuary, a shield equivalent to a massive barrier of lead. On Mars, you are naked. Every second you spend on the surface, invisible bullets are tearing through your skull at relativistic speeds. They don't just cause illness, they quietly change the brain you're relying on to survive. To stay alive, you cannot live in the glass domes of the brochures. You must stop being a surface species and start being a burrowing one. You must live like a refugee in a pressurized hole, huddling beneath meters of toxic dirt just to avoid being sterilized by the sky. A Martian colony is not a city, it is a life support system. It is a fragile, interconnected machine where every minute becomes a countdown. On Earth, if the power goes out, you light a candle. On Mars, if the power goes out, the clock starts ticking on your last breath. We are talking about placing our entire genetic legacy in the hands of a machine that was never designed to run for centuries without a repair shop from home. We are building a high-tech monument to our own arrogance and calling it a future. But the machines are not the only things that will break, because even if the technology holds, the people inside them won't stay the same. The dream of Mars is a beautiful lie. It is the vanity of a species that has only ever known a cradle, believing it can survive in a furnace. The first pioneers to spend a decade on the red planet will not be the heroes we imagined. They will be elongated, fragile strangers with hearts too weak to pump and bones too brittle to stand. They may become the first humans whose bodies can no longer survive the journey back to Earth. They will look through their reinforced windows at the tiny, blue spark in the distance and realize the most terrifying truth of all, that their home world was the only one that ever loved them. As we watch that blue light fade into the Martian dust, we have to ask ourselves, was the reach worth the cost? We have spent trillions of dollars to stand on a ghost world, only to find that we have lost ourselves in the process. But that's not why Mars is a graveyard. Before we can understand the people who may one day call this world home, we first have to understand the planet that forgot how to stay alive. We have to look at the poison beneath your feet to see how a living world turned into a chemical weapon. In the next section, we explore the chemistry of the dust and why Martian soil is the perfect biological assassin. Every civilization in history has depended on a single promise. If you can grow food, you can survive. From the fertile mud of the Nile to the vast industrial plains of the Midwest, our ability to turn soil into life is what separates us from the void. But Mars is the first world where that promise completely falls apart. Martian greenhouses look beautiful in our conceptual art. Vibrant, emerald sanctuaries shielded by glass, representing the triumph of human ingenuity over a dead world. The dream is simple: bring seeds, add water, and build a new home. But the first successful harvest on the red planet might also become the first meal that slowly, quietly, poisons an entire colony. By the end of this section, you will understand why the first farmers on Mars won't fear drought. They will fear the harvest. To understand the nightmare of the soil, we must first look at the foundational difference between the dirt of Earth and the dust of Mars. On our home world, soil is a living organism. It is a rich, complex mixture of minerals and trillions of microbes that have spent billions of years learning how to support life. Earth's soil has been washed by the endless cycles of the planetary water system, rain and tides that filter out toxins and leave behind a nurturing medium. On Earth, soil is a mother. But Martian dust has never known a drop of rain. For 4 billion years, it has been processed not by biology, but by the relentless bombardment of ultraviolet radiation and the cold chemistry of the vacuum. On Mars, the soil is not a foundation for life. It is a byproduct of 4 billion years of planetary decay. This brings us to the discovery that shattered our Martian optimism: perchlorates. When NASA's Phoenix lander first tasted the Martian soil, it found a chemical reality that no mission brochure had ever mentioned. The surface of Mars is saturated with perchlorates, oxidizing salts that are as toxic to human biology as concentrated chlorine bleach. On Earth, these are industrial chemicals used in rocket fuel. On Mars, they are everywhere. They make up nearly 1% of the soil by weight. To put that in perspective, if you found soil on Earth with that level of contamination, it would be classified as an industrial waste zone. You wouldn't be allowed to touch it without a hazmat suit, yet on Mars, this is the only Earth you will ever have. But why can't we just wash it? This is the agriculture trap. Perchlorates are highly soluble in water. The moment you add moisture to Martian dirt to grow a plant, the poison dissolves and becomes invisible, but it doesn't disappear. Instead, it is absorbed by the roots of the crops. The plants themselves might grow quite well. Species like lettuce and potatoes are surprisingly resilient to the toxins. But they become bioaccumulators. They concentrate the perchlorates in their leaves and tubers. If you eat a Martian potato, you are not just eating calories, you are eating a concentrated dose of thyroid blocker. Over time, this poison starves your brain of the hormones it needs to function. You aren't building a new civilization, you are building a population that is being mentally and physically dismantled by its own food supply. On Earth, food keeps us alive. On Mars, it may become the thing that slowly destroys us. The chemical horror of the soil is matched only by its mechanical violence. On Earth, wind and water work together to round the edges of every grain of sand. Friction creates smoothness, but on Mars, there is no liquid water to soften the blow. Martian dust is created by the thermal cracking of rocks and the impact of meteoroids. The result is a powder that is as sharp as crushed glass. Imagine breathing powdered glass every day for the rest of your life. Every microscopic grain of Martian dust is a jagged, multi-edged razor, forged in a vacuum where edges never go dull. These are not just particles, they are microscopic weapons. Because of the planet's low gravity and thin air, these glass needles carry a massive static charge. They don't just sit on the ground, they behave like a living fog. They cling to the seals of your airlocks, grinding away at the rubber until the pressure begins to hiss into the void. They find the microscopic gaps in your spacesuit, working their way through the layers until they touch your skin. But the real catastrophe begins when you breathe. Martian dust is so fine that it bypasses your body's natural filters. Once inhaled, these jagged shards lodge themselves deep in the delicate tissues of your lungs. They don't dissolve, and your body has no way to expel them. The result is a condition that will likely become the primary cause of death for the first settlers, a silicosis-like chronic lung disease. With every breath of recycled air, your lung capacity shrinks. Microscopic scars form over the glass shards, turning your soft respiratory tissues into something brittle and stiff. You don't choke suddenly, you fade over years. Your body slowly loses the ability to pull oxygen from the air until every step feels like a struggle for your very life. You aren't just living in a desert. You are living in a room filled with invisible, toxic knives that you are forced to inhale with every word you speak. The very environment you are trying to conquer is methodically shredding you from the inside out. This mechanical and chemical siege forces humanity into a desperate biological retreat. We have all seen the images of beautiful glass domes on the Martian surface, offering a view of the red horizon, but those domes are a death sentence. The glass cannot stop the radiation, and the seals cannot hold back the ghost fog of the dust. To survive, we must stop being a surface species. We must accept that we cannot live on Mars, we can only hide within it. We are forced to become burrowers, living like refugees in the dark, huddling beneath meters of toxic regolith just to use the soil as a shield against the much more violent sky. This is the ultimate irony of the Martian dream. We came to the red planet searching for open horizons and the freedom of a new frontier, but we will end up burying ourselves before we have even died. A Martian settler will likely spend their entire life without ever seeing the sun with their own eyes. They will live in pressurized tubes, staring at the underside of a ceiling made of lead and dirt. This is the underview effect, the profound psychological shift of realizing that you have traded the infinite variety of Earth for a static, gray-brown tunnel. You are no longer a pioneer. You are a prisoner of your own survival. The poison beneath your feet has won, not by killing you instantly, but by forcing you to trade your humanity for your pulse. You have built a city in the dark, breathing the filtered breath of machines and eating food that carries the ghost of rocket fuel. We have spent trillions of dollars to stand on a ghost world, only to find that we have lost the very things that make us human. The soil of Mars is a chemical weapon designed by 4 billion years of isolation, and it has successfully turned our next home into our first interplanetary prison. But even if we learn to live in the dark, even if we build the perfect filters and the strongest seals, we are still ignoring the predator that is watching us from above. The poison beneath your feet can shorten your life and dissolve your bones, but the sky above Mars can rewrite the very person you are. In the next section, we are going to look at the radiation siege. We will discover why the most advanced habitats in the world cannot protect you from the invisible bullets of deep space, and why the Martian sky is not a window, but a weapon. Are you ready to see why the red planet's greatest threat isn't what you're standing on, but what you're standing under? On Earth, we look at the sky as a sanctuary. For 4 billion years, the blue vault above us has acted as a guardian, a silent filter that allows the warmth of the sun to reach us while blocking the lethal violence of the deeper cosmos. We walk under the open air with a sense of profound security, never realizing that we are currently sitting at the bottom of an atmospheric shield equivalent to a 12-foot thick wall of solid lead. But on Mars, that sanctuary is gone. The Martian sky is a thin, translucent veil that offers no protection from the raw energy of the galaxy. We imagine our future cities on the red planet as glowing glass metropolises under a pink sunset, but the reality is that the Martian surface is effectively a permanent nuclear blast zone without the fire. By the end of this section, you will understand why the most advanced Martian domes are actually high-tech cages, and why the sky above Mars is not a window, but a weapon that is actively trying to rewrite your brain. To understand the scale of this siege, we must first look at the invisible armor that Earth possesses and Mars lacks, the magnetosphere. Deep inside our home world, a A spinning molten core of iron generates a gargantuan magnetic field that stretches thousands of kilometers into space. This field acts as a deflector shield, pushing the violent stream of charged particles from the sun around our planet like water around a stone in a river. But Mars is a geologically dead world. Its core cooled and solidified billions of years ago, and with it, its magnetic heart stopped beating. Without this shield, the red planet is naked. It is a target in a cosmic shooting gallery, exposed to a relentless bombardment of high-energy particles that treat the Martian atmosphere and your body as if they weren't even there. There are two primary enemies in the radiation siege, and the first is the most unpredictable, the sun. We think of our star as a steady provider of light, but it is actually a volatile nuclear furnace prone to sudden, violent tantrums called solar particle events. On Earth, these flares create beautiful auroras in the high latitudes. On Mars, they create a lethal rain of protons. Because there is no magnetic field to deflect them, a single major solar flare could deliver a year's worth of radiation dose in a matter of hours. If you're caught on the surface during such an event, your survival isn't measured in days. It is measured in the minutes it takes for your cells to stop functioning. But strangely, the sun is not the predator we should fear the most. The second and more terrifying enemy comes from the deep dark between the stars, galactic cosmic rays. These are not just rays, they are heavy ionized nuclei, mostly iron and carbon, that have been accelerated to relativistic speeds by distant supernovae. These particles carry so much kinetic energy that they don't just hit you, they pass through you like invisible bullets moving at nearly the speed of light. On Earth, our thick atmosphere shatters these heavy ions before they reach the ground. On Mars, they arrive with their full destructive power intact. This is the first wait, what moment of the siege. When one of these invisible bullets strikes the metal hull of a Martian habitat, it doesn't always stop. Instead, it shatters the atoms of the hull itself, creating a secondary spray of even more dangerous particles, neutrons and protons that tear through everything inside. You aren't just being hit by the universe, you're being attacked by the very walls you built to protect you. The impact of this bombardment on human biology is a slow-motion catastrophe. We often talk about radiation in terms of cancer risk, but cancer is a long-term problem. In the short term, the radiation siege targets your most vital organ, the brain. This is the nightmare of cosmic dementia. Recent medical studies conducted on Earth using simulated heavy ion radiation have shown that high-energy particles can physically alter the neural pathways of the brain. They don't just cause illness, they disrupt the way neurons communicate. Over a decade on the Martian surface, an explorer wouldn't just get physically sick, they would lose their edge. Their memory would begin to fray. Their decision-making would slow. The very people we rely on to maintain the complex machines of a Martian colony would find themselves struggling to remember a basic maintenance protocol or a simple mathematical formula. You aren't just losing your health, you are losing the person you used to be. This realization destroys the most popular assumption of the Martian dream, the glass dome. In every conceptual drawing of a Martian colony, we see vast, transparent structures that allow the settlers to see the sky and feel the light of the sun. But in the reality of the radiation siege, glass is a liability. To provide the same level of protection as Earth's atmosphere, a Martian dome would need to be covered in several meters of lead or 5 meters of solid dirt. A transparent city on Mars is a death trap. To stay alive, humanity must make a biological retreat. We must accept that the only safe place on the red planet is in the dark. This is where we encounter the ultimate irony of our expansion. We went to Mars to find a new world, but we will end up living like refugees in a pressurized hole. A Martian settler will likely spend 90% of their life underground, huddling in lava tubes or tunnels carved into the regolith, using the very soil we just discovered is poisonous as their only shield against the sky. They will live in artificial light, breathing air that has been through a machine 1,000,000 times, staring at screens that project a fake blue sky to keep their minds from collapsing. We imagine the explorers of the future as conquerors of a new frontier, but on Mars, they will be burrowers, hiding from a universe that doesn't want them there. The radiation siege is not a battle we can win with better medicine or thicker suits. It is a fundamental conflict between our soft, wet biology and the raw physics of the cosmos. We are planetary accidents, fine-tuned to live in a very specific magnetic bubble. When we leave that bubble, we aren't just changing our location. We are entering a realm where the rules of life are being systematically deleted. The sky above Mars is a window into a furnace that has been burning for billions of years, and it has no intention of stopping for us. You aren't just standing on a dead planet. You are standing in the open mouth of the galaxy, and every second you stay there, the universe is trying to turn you back into raw atoms. But as we huddle in our dark tunnels, hiding from the invisible bullets in the sky and the poison in the ground, we are ignoring the most insidious threat of all. We think that if we can just protect the body, the mission will succeed. But the human body is more than just DNA and bone. It is a dynamic system that requires the constant, crushing pull of a planet to maintain its structure. The poison in the ground can shorten your life, and the sky can rewrite your brain, but the lack of gravity can dissolve the very frame that holds you together. In the next section, we are going to look at the low-G dissolution. We will discover why on Mars, your heart will physically change its shape, and why your own skeleton will begin to see itself as an unnecessary weight. Are you ready to see why the red planet's greatest threat isn't what you're standing on, but how little it pulls on you? On Earth, gravity is the invisible architect of our existence. From the first moment of your conception to the last breath you take, the constant 1G pull of our planet has acted as a master sculptor, defining the density of your bones, the strength of your heart, and the very shape of your cells. We walk through our lives unaware of this force, never realizing that every step we take is a rhythmic dialogue between our biology and the Earth. But Mars breaks this dialogue. On the red planet, that architectural hand is 38% weaker. We imagine this as a gift, the heroic ability to leap higher, run faster, and move with a sense of godlike lightness. But in the reality of human biology, this lightness is a slow-motion dissolution. By the end of this section, you will understand why the fun of Martian gravity is actually a biological countdown, and why your own body will eventually decide that Earth is a world it can no longer afford to visit. To understand the scale of this dissolution, we must first look at the most vital engine in your body, the heart. On Earth, your heart is a powerful, muscular pump that has spent your entire life fighting the vertical pull of gravity to push blood upward to your brain. It is an engine designed for a high-resistance environment. But the moment you land on Mars, the resistance drops by 62%. Your heart, sensing that its work is suddenly easier, does what any efficient system does. It begins to downsize. Because it no longer needs the same muscular force to overcome gravity, the heart muscle begins to atrophy. Recent data from long-duration missions on the International Space Station suggests that in a low-gravity environment, the human heart doesn't just weaken, it physically changes its shape. It becomes more spherical, losing its elongated efficiency as the lower chambers shrink. You are living with a heart that is slowly forgetting how to be a pump, turning instead into a thin, weak bag of fluid. But as the heart shrinks, your internal fluids begin a chaotic migration. On Earth, gravity pulls your blood and interstitial fluids toward your feet. On Mars, that pull is too weak to keep the balance. The result is what doctors call the fluid shift. Within days, the liquids in your body move upward, flooding your chest and your skull. Your legs become thin, a phenomenon often called bird legs, while your face becomes permanently swollen and puffy. But this isn't just a cosmetic issue. The increased pressure inside your skull begins to push against the back of your eyes, flattening the eyeballs and inflaming the optic nerves. This is the first wait. What? Moment of the dissolution. You didn't go to Mars to go blind, but the lack of weight is physically crushing your vision from the inside out. Your eyes, the very tools you need to navigate this new world, are being systematically deformed by the absence of the Earth's pull. While your vision blurs and your heart shrinks, your skeletal system begins a much more permanent retreat. On Earth, your bones are not static rocks, they are dynamic mineral banks. Your body constantly deposits calcium into your bones to keep them strong enough to support your weight, and it withdraws calcium when it needs it elsewhere. But on Mars, your skeleton receives a terrifying message: you are no longer needed. Because you are 62% lighter, your bones realize they are overbuilt for the environment. In a desperate act of biological efficiency, your body begins to dismantle its own frame. Every month you spend on Mars, you lose approximately 1 to 1.5% of your bone mineral density. To put that in perspective, a healthy person on Earth might lose that much in a year of aging. On Mars, you are experiencing accelerated osteoporosis on a scale that medicine has never seen. This is where we encounter the skeletal wash. The calcium being stripped from your bones has nowhere to go but into your bloodstream. Your kidneys, already struggling with the fluid shift, are suddenly overwhelmed by a massive influx of minerals. This leads to a near-constant risk of agonizing kidney stones, but the deeper horror is where the bone actually ends up. As your body filters this excess calcium, it is flushed out of your system. You are quite literally urinating your own skeleton into the ship's recycling tanks. You aren't just living on a new world, you are losing the physical materials that make you a creature of the Earth. Within a few years, your bones become so porous and brittle that they resemble glass. A simple stumble in a corridor, a move that would be a minor bruise on Earth, could result in multiple catastrophic fractures that your weakened body no longer has the resources to repair. This skeletal dissolution leads to the ultimate evolutionary trap. We imagine ourselves as interplanetary travelers, moving back and forth between Earth and Mars like commuters. But gravity is a one-way door. After a decade of living in 38% gravity, your body has re-baselined itself for the red planet. Your heart is too weak to pump blood against 1G. Your bones are too fragile to support the weight of an earthbound frame, and your vestibular system has forgotten how to balance in a heavy world. If you were to attempt to return to Earth, the very act of landing would be a physical assault. The sudden return of Earth's gravity would feel like a crushing weight on your chest, potentially collapsing your atrophied heart or snapping your brittle spine. You have become a biological exile. You have survived the stars, but you have lost the right to walk on the world that birthed you. The psychological weight of this realization is the silent breaking point for Martian settlers. On Earth, we are defined by our mobility. The ability to go home is the ultimate safety net for the human mind. But on Mars, that safety net is cut by the laws of physics. You sit in your subterranean tunnel, looking at the blue light of Earth in your monitors, and you realize that it is no longer a destination. It is a museum. It is a world of crushing weight that would kill you if you tried to touch it. You are the first generation of humans to be physically divorced from your own planet. This creates a profound sense of biological loneliness, the realization that you are no longer the same species as the people you left behind. You are a creature of the low-G void, a thin, fragile ghost huddling in the dark, watching a world you can never inhabit again. But the dissolution is not just about the bones and the heart, it is about the genetic drift. We must ask the question that no one wants to answer. What happens to a child born in 38% gravity? A fetus develops in response to the stresses of the environment. If that environment is missing 2/3 of Earth's gravity, will the child's heart ever grow strong enough? Will their spine ever curve correctly? Will their brain develop the same neural pathways for balance and spatial awareness? We are talking about initiating a speciation event, the deliberate creation of a new branch of humanity that is physically incompatible with the rest of the species. We are building a future where the children of Mars and the children of Earth will be strangers, separated not just by distance, but by the very atoms of their bodies. This reveals the final irony of the low-G dissolution. We went to Mars to save humanity, to ensure that if Earth fell, our species would continue. But the planet is not interested in preserving us. It is interested in changing us. It is taking our soft, earth-bound biology and grinding it down, reshaping it to fit the requirements of a dead world. We aren't colonizing Mars. Mars is digesting us. It is taking our hearts, our bones, and our eyes, and turning them into something that belongs to the red dust. The hero of the Martian dream is a myth. The reality is a frail, elongated survivor who has traded their heritage for a heartbeat. And yet, as your body dissolves and your connection to the earth snaps, you're still facing a world of absolute silence. We think that if we can just solve the biology, if we can just fix the bones and the heart, we will be safe. But the human mind is not a closed system. It requires the constant, noisy feedback of a living world to stay sane. On Mars, even if your body survives, your mind is entering a prison of information starvation. In the next section, we are going to look at the 20-minute silence. We will explore the psychological horror of the communication lag and why the greatest threat to a Martian colony isn't a lack of oxygen. It's the terrifying realization that Earth is already a ghost. Are you ready to see why on Mars, the most lethal thing you will ever encounter is the sound of your own voice? We are a species built on the rhythm of the instant. On Earth, we have conquered the tyranny of distance through the speed of light. When you send a message, make a call, or shout for help, the response is immediate. Our sanity is maintained by this invisible web of feedback, the constant, reassuring noise of a connected world. We believe that no matter how far we wander, the collective intelligence of humanity is only a fraction of a second away, but Mars severs this cord. On the red planet, the most fundamental law of the universe, the speed of light, becomes a psychological blade. You are about to enter a world where help is not a phone call away, but a message sent to the dead. By the end of this section, you will understand why the 20-minute silence is the most lethal predator on Mars, and why the greatest threat to a colony isn't a lack of air, but the slow evaporation of the human connection. To understand the horror of the silence, we have to look at the cold mathematics of the gap. Mars and Earth are two planets on different tracks, dancing around the sun at different speeds. At their closest, they are 55 million kilometers apart. At their furthest, they are over 400 million. Light, the fastest messenger in existence, takes between 4 and 24 minutes to cross that distance. This is not a technical glitch that better satellites can fix. It is a physical limit of our reality. On Mars, you live in a permanent state of temporal lag. Every image you see of Earth is already 20 minutes old. Every breaking news alert is history. You are living in a house where every window looks into the past, and every door is locked by the speed of light. This creates the emergency paradox, the moment when your reliance on Earth becomes a death trap. Imagine a catastrophic failure in your habitat, a fire in the oxygen scrubbers or a breach in the main seal. On the International Space Station, you call Mission Control and they diagnose the glitch in real time. On Mars, you send a distress signal. Travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, yet it still takes 20 minutes to reach Earth. The engineers hear your plea for help 20 minutes after you've already stopped breathing. They calculate a solution and broadcast it back, but it arrives to a world of silence. The lag ensures that you are effectively alone in your most desperate moments. You aren't being guided by Earth. You're being sent a series of postcards from a civilization that is always arriving too late to save you. The psychological erosion begins with the death of the conversation. Human relationships are built on the ping-pong of interaction, the subtle cues, the immediate laughs, the quick rebuttals. But you cannot have a conversation with a 40-minute round trip. You can only send monologues. Over years of isolation, the Martian settlers will stop trying to talk to Earth. They will start to treat the people of our world as historical figures rather than living relatives. This leads to the information starvation of the mind. On Earth, we are surrounded by the noise of life, the rustle of wind, the chirp of birds, the chaotic overlap of human voices. But on Mars, the thin atmosphere, just 1% as thick as Earth's, acts as an acoustic vacuum. This is where we encounter the muffled reality. Because the Martian air is primarily carbon dioxide and incredibly sparse, sound does not travel with the same clarity or distance. It is distorted, muffled, and high-frequency tones are swallowed by the atmospheric void. If you were to shout on the surface, your voice wouldn't carry. It would sound thin, hollow, and alien even to your own ears. You lose the acoustic mirror, the ability to feel located in space by the sound of your environment. You are trapped in a world that feels like it's underwater, yet you are bone dry. This sensory deprivation is a psychological assassin. It creates a state of directional vertigo, where your brain struggles to maintain its grip on reality in a world that refuses to talk back. As the connection to Earth thins, the language of the colony begins to mutate. Linguists have already begun to speculate that within a single generation, a Martian settlement would develop its own distinct dialect. Cut off from the evolving slang and cultural shifts of Earth, the settlers would lean into the technical jargon of survival. Words like airlock, scrub, and seal would carry a weight of life and death that we can no longer comprehend. They would develop a utilitarian vocabulary, where every sentence is measured for its efficiency. The children of Mars, the first generation to never hear a natural bird or feel a thunderstorm, would speak a language that is a distorted echo of our own. We are witnessing the birth of an interplanetary divorce, where the two branches of humanity can no longer understand the emotional cadence of each other's lives. This leads to the grave of the archives. To combat the isolation, every Martian colony would carry a massive digital library of Earth, billions of books, movies, and songs. But for a settler who has spent a decade in a pressurized hole, these archives become a source of nostalgic trauma. You watch a movie of a summer rainstorm in London or a sunset over the Pacific, and you realize that these things are as fictional to your reality as a dragon. You are living in a museum of a world you can no longer touch. The blue planet in your monitors starts to look like a CGI fantasy, a golden age that never really existed. You start to resent the archives because they remind you of the sensory abundance you traded for a metal ceiling. You are a prisoner in a high-tech library, surrounded by the stories of a species you no longer belong to. But the most unsettling effect of the 20-minute silence is the erosion of accountability. On Earth, our behavior is regulated by social pressure and the presence of others. On Mars, the only others are the same 12 people you have seen every day for 3,000 days. Earth is too far away to judge you. The laws of Earth become abstract suggestions. This creates the governance trap, the realization that a Martian colony cannot be a democracy in the way we understand it. It must be an absolute, technical autocracy. Whoever controls the air and the water owns your life. The silence ensures that if a tyranny rises on Mars, Earth won't know about it for months, and even then, they will be powerless to intervene. You are building a world where the human rights of Earth are a luxury that the physics of Mars cannot afford. Think about the final irony of this isolation. We went to Mars to ensure that the human story would continue, to make us unkillable as a species. But by placing ourselves behind the 20-minute wall, we have created a version of humanity that is fundamentally severed. We have built a world of ghosts who are huddling in the dark, watching the now of Earth pass them by like a ship in the night. The silence is not just an absence of sound, it is an absence of a future. You have reached the red planet, but you have lost the only thing that made the journey worth taking, the ability to be part of the present. The 20-minute silence has won, not by cutting the signal, but by making it meaningless. You have built a city in the dark, eating the ghost food of Section 2 and living with the glass bones of Section 4, all while waiting for a message that will arrive 20 minutes too late. We have spent trillions of dollars to stand on a ghost world, only to find that we have turned ourselves into ghosts in the process. We are the first generation to realize that the most isolated place in the universe is home when you can no longer hear its heartbeat. But even as we struggle with the silence of the signal, we are ignoring the scream of the environment. We think that if we can just stay inside, if we can just maintain the machines and wait for the messages, we will survive. But the Martian environment is not content to leave us in our tunnels. While we hide from the radiation and the cold, a microscopic enemy is gathering at the door. An enemy that doesn't need to break your spirit or dissolve your bones. It just needs to find a single microscopic gap in your seal. In the next section, we are going to look at the dust that screams. We will explore the mechanical horror of the Martian storm and why the most dangerous thing on the red planet is a single grain of sand. Are you ready to see why on Mars, even the wind has a weapon? On Earth, we think of the wind as a breath of life. It is the force that carries the scent of rain, the rustle of leaves, and the cooling relief of a summer afternoon. We associate the sound of the wind with the outdoors, with freedom, and with the vast, open spaces of a world that breathes alongside us. But on Mars, the wind carries a different kind of voice. It is a dry, high-pitched scream that signals the arrival of the red planet's most patient assassin. We imagine the explorers of the future standing tall against a Martian dust storm, like heroes in a cinematic epic. But the reality is that a Martian storm is not a battle of strength. It is a battle of microscopic erosion. In this section, we are going to explore the dust that screams. We will discover why a single grain of sand is more dangerous than a solar flare, and why the most terrifying sound a Martian settler will ever hear is the faint, rhythmic whistle of a failing seal. To understand the mechanical horror of the dust, we must first look at the razor edge of a world without water. On Earth, the environment is a master of polishing. Every grain of sand on a beach and every mote of dust in the air has been tumbled and smoothed by billions of years of liquid friction. Water acts as a universal lubricant, rounding the edges of the world until they are safe for biology. But on Mars, there is no such mercy. Martian dust is the product of 4 billion years of mechanical violence, the thermal cracking of rocks in the extreme cold, and the relentless impact of meteoroids on an unprotected surface. The result is a powder that is as fine as smoke, but as sharp as a diamond. Every microscopic particle is a jagged, multi-angled razor that has never been softened by a single drop of rain. This leads to the first major wait, what moment of the Martian environment. The dust is not just on the planet, it is part of the planet's electrical nervous system. Because Mars is bone dry, the dust particles are prone to a phenomenon called triboelectric charging. As the wind blows these jagged shards across the surface, they rub against each other, building up massive amounts of static electricity. On Earth, our humid air allows static to bleed away harmlessly, but on Mars, the air is an insulator. The dust clouds become giant floating batteries. They don't just sit on the ground, they are physically attracted to your habitat, your suit, and your sensors by electromagnetic force. You aren't just living in a desert, you are living inside a static-charged grinding wheel that is actively trying to stick to every moving part you possess. The true siege begins at the seal. On Earth, we think of an airlock as a solid, permanent door, but in the reality of the dust, a seal is a consumable. Because the Martian dust is so small, often less than 5 microns wide, it is effectively a liquid solid. It flows into the microscopic pits of your rubber gaskets and the serrated tracks of your mechanical gears. Every time an airlock opens, a billion jagged razors embed themselves in the polymers that keep your air inside. As the seal closes, the dust doesn't just sit there, it grinds. It is a process of atomic sandblasting that happens every single day. Within months, the smooth surface of the seal becomes a map of microscopic canyons. This is when the scream begins. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to a faint, high-pitched whine. It is a sound so thin it feels like a needle in your ear. It is the sound of your atmosphere, your only lifeline, escaping through a gap no wider than a human hair. You realize that the dust has finally won. It has chewed through the high-tech polymers of your home, and now the vacuum of Mars is calling you out. This isn't a dramatic explosion. It is a slow, rhythmic hissing, the sound of a civilization that is literally being whistled away by a grain of sand. You find yourself in a permanent state of maintenance paranoia, spending your days cleaning seals that will be dirty again in an hour, knowing that on Mars, a dirty room isn't a nuisance, it's a precursor to a grave. But the dust doesn't just attack your doors, it attacks your energy. We've been told that Mars will be powered by vast arrays of solar panels, thousands of acres of silicon glass catching the weak light of a distant sun, but the dust has a different plan. Martian dust is highly cohesive. It carries a charge that makes it glue itself to glass. On a normal day, a thin layer of red silt will reduce your power output by 1%. After a week, it's 10%. And then the global storm arrives. Every few years, a local dust devil on Mars grows until it consumes the entire planet. For months, the sky turns a dark, bruised red. The sun disappears. This is the darkness loop that most colony simulations fail to survive. During a global storm, your solar power drops to effectively zero. Your batteries begin to drain. Your heaters, the only things keeping your water from freezing solid, must be throttled back. You are trapped in a subterranean tunnel, listening to the roar of 100-mile-per-hour wind that carries no physical force because the air is so thin, yet carries enough dust to bury your entire world in shadow. You realize that you are huddling in a high-tech cave, waiting for a storm to end that has no timetable. You are a prisoner of a weather pattern that is more powerful than your entire industrial base. The biological cost of the screaming dust is the final, most personal layer of the siege. As we explored in Section 2, these microscopic glass needles find their way into your lungs, but here we look at the environmental infiltration. The dust is so pervasive that it enters your food, your water, and your bed. You wake up with the taste of rust in your mouth and the grit of the Oort cloud in your eyes. It is an abrasive existence. Every time you move, you feel the dust grinding against your skin. It causes chronic inflammation, persistent rashes, and a state of sensory irritation that never stops. On Earth, we can wash away the world. On Mars, washing is a luxury of the wealthy, and even then, the water you use is just a slurry of recycled sweat and filtered minerals. You can never truly be clean. You are physically merging with the red planet, one microscopic cut at a time. This mechanical abrasion leads to the fragility of the machine. Every rover we have ever sent to Mars has eventually been claimed by the dust. Whether it's Opportunity's solar panels being buried or Curiosity's wheels being shredded by the sharp rocks, the verdict is the same. The red planet digests machines. But a rover is a robot. It doesn't need to breathe, and it doesn't feel the high-pitched whine of a seal. A human colony is a complex biological clock that requires thousands of moving parts to function perfectly. On Mars, you are trying to run that clock inside a sandblaster. Every motor, every pump, every fan, and every valve has an expiration date that is being accelerated by the jagged shards at the door. You realize that you aren't building a city, you are managing a slow-motion mechanical collapse. The dust that screams reveals the ultimate truth of our Martian ambition. We thought we could conquer the red planet with steel and fire, but the planet doesn't fight back with fire, it fights back with time and friction. It uses the smallest things, the invisible, jagged motes of rust, to dismantle our greatest achievements. The scream of the wind isn't a threat, it is a reminder of our own irrelevance. We are intruders in a world that has spent billions of years perfecting the art of being dead. And as we hide in our tunnels, listening to the dust grind against the glass, we realize that we are the ones who provided the weapon. We provided the seal, and the universe provided the grit. The mechanical siege of the dust has won, not by breaking your spirit, but by making your survival a full-time job. You have become a janitor of your own tomb, spending every waking hour fighting an enemy that is too small to see but too sharp to ignore. You have survived the poison beneath your feet and the radiation siege from above, but you are losing the battle of the microscopic cut. And yet, even as you fight the dust at the door, a new and much more subtle danger is growing inside the walls. We think that if we can just keep the dust out, if we can just maintain the seals and the power, we will be safe. But the human body is not a static object. It is a dynamic system that requires the constant, rhythmic feedback of a living world to maintain its sanity. In our desperate attempt to hide from the dust, we have created a sensory void. In the next section, we are going to look at the artificial cradle. We will explore why the greatest threat to a Martian colony isn't the environment outside, but the mechanical mother inside. Are you ready to see why the machine that keeps you alive might be the very thing that drives you mad? Every breath you have ever taken was a gift you didn't have to earn. On Earth, we live in a state of biological grace. You don't wake up in the morning and check the status of the atmosphere. You don't worry if the wind has forgotten how to carry oxygen or if the trees have gone on strike. You simply exist, supported by a planetary life support system that has been running without a single reboot for 4 billion years. We are the spoiled children of a generous mother, never realizing that the very air in our lungs is a product of a vast, complex, and unmanaged planetary harmony. But on Mars, that grace is withdrawn. On the red planet, breathing is no longer a biological right. It is an industrial output. In this section, we are going to explore the artificial cradle. We will discover why the greatest threat to a Martian colony is the machine that keeps it alive, and why the most terrifying realization for a settler is that their life is always just one software update away from extinction. To understand the horror of the cradle, you must first look at the industrialization of the breath. On Earth, oxygen is a byproduct of life. On Mars, it is a byproduct of engineering. Every molecule of air inside a Martian habitat must be extracted from the thin, poisonous carbon dioxide of the atmosphere or baked out of the frozen regolith. This means that every inhabitant of a Martian colony is physically tethered to a machine. You are no longer an independent organism. You are a parasite on a mechanical host. We call this the artificial cradle, but in reality, it is a high-tech leash. On Earth, if your house loses power, you light a candle. On Mars, if your power grid collapses, you have approximately 15 minutes of usable oxygen before the carbon dioxide you exhale begins to poison you. You are living inside a mechanical lung, and the lung doesn't care about your soul. This leads to the first what moment of Martian existence, the sensory poverty of recycled life. On Earth, we are surrounded by the sense of a living world, the smell of soil after rain, the sharp salt of the sea, the fragrance of a forest. These are not just pleasantries, they are the sensory anchors that tell our brains we are found. But inside the artificial cradle, the air is sterile. It has been filtered, scrubbed, and repressurized so many times that it loses its character. The smell of Mars for a settler isn't the red dust. It's the scent of ozone, warm electronics, and the metallic tang of recycled sweat. This is a world where fresh air is a technical term for a chemical equilibrium, and where the lack of sensory variety leads to a state of chronic mental fatigue. Your brain is evolved for a chaotic, fragrant world, but it is being forced to live in a clinical, odorless tube. The mechanical entropy of the cradle is the silent assassin that never sleeps. We imagine a Martian colony as a collection of sleek, perfect machines that run forever. But on Earth, we know that every machine breaks. Every pump has a lifespan. Every sensor drifts out of calibration. Every seal eventually cracks. We live in a world of planned obsolescence, but on Mars, obsolescence is a death sentence. To maintain a colony for a century, you would need an industrial base capable of manufacturing every single spare part for every single life support system on the planet. If you don't have the specific alloy for a high-pressure valve in year 30, the entire colony dies. You aren't just building a city, you're managing a maintenance crisis that spans light years. You are always one broken bearing away from total systemic collapse. This creates the paranoia of the hum. In Section 5, we talked about the acoustic isolation of the Martian surface, but inside the cradle, the silence is replaced by a constant, low-frequency vibration. It is the sound of the fans. It is the sound of the pumps. It is the sound of the machine mother breathing for you. For a Martian settler, this hum is the most beautiful and the most terrifying sound in the universe. As long as you hear the hum, you are alive. If the hum stops, or if it even changes its pitch, the fight or flight response of your brain is triggered instantly. You live in a state of permanent auditory vigilance, unable to truly relax because your survival is tied to a mechanical rhythm. You become hypersensitive to the machine, learning to interpret its groans and clicks like a doctor listening to a failing heart. You don't live in a home. You live inside a patient that is always on the verge of code blue. The psychological toll of this dependency leads to the autocratic machine. On Earth, we value freedom because the environment doesn't require our obedience to keep us breathing. But a Martian colony cannot afford the luxury of dissent. If the life support computer determines that the power must be diverted from the residential sector to the oxygen scrubbers, it doesn't ask for a vote. It simply does it. The cradle is a perfect tyranny. Whoever controls the code of the life support system owns the life of every person in the dome. You are building a society where civil rights are secondary to system integrity. A single person's rebellion, or even their simple mistake, could compromise the air supply of the entire species. The result is a culture of extreme surveillance and rigid social control. You went to Mars to find a new world of freedom, but you ended up in a pressurized panopticon where even your breath is monitored by an algorithm. As the years pass, the artificiality of the cradle begins to erode the human spirit. We are creatures of the horizon, designed to move through vast spaces and see the changing of the seasons. But in the cradle, the horizon is a curved metal wall. The sky is an LED panel that mimics the color of an Earth dawn, but lacks its depth and heat. This is the illusion of habitability. We think that if we can just provide the chemicals, the right oxygen, the right water, the right calories, the human will be fine. But the human is not a chemical equation, it is a biological history. Our brains need the randomness of Earth, the unpredictable weather, the movement of animals, the variety of the landscape to stay sane. Without it, the mind begins to hallucinate context. You start to see movements in the shadows of the air ducts. You start to hear whispers in the roar of the fans. The machine mother is keeping your body alive, but it is starving your mind of the nourishment of reality. This leads us to the ultimate irony of the Martian dream, the replacement of the real. To survive the isolation of the cradle, the settlers will inevitably retreat into virtual worlds. They will use high-resolution VR to walk on earthly beaches or sit in earthly forests. But this creates a profound ontological mismatch. You are physically huddling in a dark, dusty tunnel, but your brain is telling you that you are under a Nila blue sky. The gap between what you see and what you feel creates a state of disassociation. You start to treat the real world, the world of the Martian tunnel, as a nuisance, a dirty secret that you have to endure between virtual sessions. You are no longer a pioneer of a new world. You are a refugee from your own reality, using technology to hide from the very planet you spent billions to reach. The artificial cradle has won, not by breaking your machines, but by turning you into a ghost in the wires. You have built a city that breathes for you, but in doing so, you have lost the ability to breathe for yourself. You have survived the poison beneath your feet and the dust that screams, but you are losing the battle of human identity. We are the first generation to realize that the most dangerous thing about Mars isn't the environment outside, it's the dependency inside. We have traded the messy, dangerous, but free world of Earth for a sterile, perfect, but lethal cradle. But even as we struggle with the madness of the machine, a new and much more visceral terror is forming in the red air. We think that if we can just stay inside, if we can just maintain the cradle and ignore the silence, we will endure. But Mars is a world of shadows, and there is a specific kind of madness that grows when you look at the same red horizon for too many days. A madness that doesn't come from a glitch in the software, but from a glitch in the human perception of time and space. In the next section, we are going to look at the madness of the red fog. We will explore the sensory deprivation of the Martian landscape, and why the greatest threat to a Martian settler's sanity isn't the cold. It's the red sickness of a world that never changes. Are you ready to see why on Mars, the most dangerous thing you can do is look out the window? On Earth, the horizon is a promise of freedom. When you feel overwhelmed by the walls of your life, you go outside. You look at the distant line where the sky meets the sea, or the jagged silhouette of a mountain range against the sunset. This visual depth, the ability to see far away, is a biological necessity for the human mind. Our eyes and our brains evolved in an expansive, multicolored world, a place of infinite greens, deep blues, and shifting whites. This variety is the nourishment of our sanity. But on Mars, the horizon is a lie, and the sky is a cage. We imagine the first Martian settlers looking out of their reinforced windows with a sense of awe, watching the pink clouds drift over a rusted landscape. But the reality is that the Martian landscape is a sensory desert that eventually turns into a psychological predator. In this section, we are going to explore the madness of the red fog. We will discover why the most dangerous thing you can do on Mars is look out the window, and why the greatest threat to a settler's mind isn't the isolation, it's the color red. To understand the madness, we must first look at the biological fatigue of a single color. The human eye is a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering, tuned to detect the subtle differences in a lush, terrestrial environment. We have thousands of shades of green to tell us about the health of plants, dozens of blues to tell us about the depth of the water and the state of the weather. Our brains are stimulation junkies, requiring a constant influx of varied visual data to maintain a sense of presence. But Mars is monochromatic. Aside from the occasional pale blue sunset, everything you see is a variation of iron oxide. It is a world of rust, ochre, and dust. Within months, a Martian settler begins to experience chromatic starvation. The brain, desperate for the greens and blues of home, begins to lose its ability to focus. The red isn't just a color anymore, it becomes a claustrophobia. It is a red fog that settles over your perception, making the world feel flat, stagnant, and unreal. This leads to the first what moment of Martian psychology, the horizon trap. On Earth, your eyes are constantly adjusting their focus from near to far. This visual exercise is part of how we perceive the passage of time and the scale of our world. But on Mars, because you spend 90% of your time inside a pressurized tube or a subterranean tunnel, your visual range is restricted to a few meters. When you finally do look out a window or step onto the surface in a suit, your brain struggles to process the distance. Because the Martian atmosphere is so thin and lacks the moisture of Earth, there is no aerial perspective. Things that are miles away look as sharp and clear as things that are right in front of you. This lack of visual depth creates a state of permanent vertigo. You feel like you are living inside a high-definition photograph, a world that is visually perfect but physically unreachable. You are a mind trapped in a 2D mirage, and the more you look at the red horizon, the more you feel like your own body is disappearing. The red sickness is compounded by the terrifying reality of temporal drift. We are creatures of the Earth day. Every cell in our bodies is governed by a 24-hour circadian rhythm, a biological clock that has been synchronized with the rotation of our home planet for 4 billion years. But a day on Mars, a sol, is 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. It sounds trivial, like a slightly longer lunch break. But 40 minutes a day means that every week, your biological clock drifts by nearly 5 hours. Within a month, you are completely out of sync with the people on Earth. You are eating breakfast when they are sleeping. You are awake when they are celebrating. This clock-shattering effect leads to a state of permanent metabolic jet lag. Your hormones are imbalanced, your sleep is fragmented, and your cognitive edge begins to dull. You aren't just in a different place. You are in a different time, and your body is physically protesting the change. This temporal isolation leads us to the heart of the madness, Earth sickness. This is not the simple homesickness we feel on a long vacation. It is a biological mourning. On Earth, we are constantly fed by the chaos of a living world, the unpredictable rustle of a bird, the shifting patterns of clouds, the smell of life. These are sensory vitamins that keep the human spirit resilient. But on Mars, everything is managed. Every sound is a machine. Every smell is recycled. Every view is a variation of the same rusted rock. The mind begins to hallucinate Earth. Settlers have reported hearing the sound of rain against a metal hull that has never known moisture. They report the phantom smell of cut grass in an airlock filled with toxic dust. This is the brain's desperate attempt to fill the void, to recreate the home it was never meant to leave. It is a slow descent into a state of displacement psychosis, where the red world outside becomes a nightmare you can't wake up from, and the blue world in your memory becomes a ghost that haunts your every thought. Think about the psychological toll of environmental stagnation. On Earth, the world changes. The seasons turn, the leaves fall, the snow melts. Change is the evidence of life, but Mars is geologically and biologically dead. The landscape you see today is the same landscape that was there 1,000,000 years ago, and it will be the same 1,000,000 years from now. There is no growth, there is no decay, there is only the wind moving the dust from one pile to another. This eternal sameness erodes the human sense of purpose. If the world never changes, does your presence in it even matter? You realize that you aren't a pioneer building a future. You are a temporary occupant of a world that is fundamentally finished. The madness of the red fog is the realization that you have traded a living, changing paradise for a static red tomb. This leads to the social fragmentation of the colony. On Earth, we have space to escape one another. If you have a conflict with a neighbor, you can walk away. You can find a new group. But in a Martian tunnel, there is no away. You are trapped with the same 12 people in a pressurized ken for the rest of your life. Every personality quirk, every annoying habit, and every minor disagreement is magnified by the scale of the isolation. This is the pressure cooker effect. In our mission simulations, we found that small teams often descend into cliques and silent wars within months. On Mars, where the stakes are life and death, these social fractures are lethal. The red sickness doesn't just make you lose your mind, it makes you lose your empathy. You start to see your fellow settlers not as companions, but as competitors for the limited air and water of the cradle. You are building a society where social cohesion is a thin, fragile mask hiding a deep, survivalist rage. The ultimate irony of the red fog is that the more we try to cure it with technology, the worse it gets. We provide the settlers with high-resolution VR of Earth, as we explored in the last section. But the VR crash, the moment you take the headset off and realize you are still in a dusty, gray-brown hole, is a psychological trauma that can lead to total catatonia. We give them artificial nature, plastic plants and recorded bird sounds, but the brain knows the difference. The uncanny valley of a fake world is more disturbing than no world at all. We are trying to hack the human spirit to accept a planet that is fundamentally alien to its nature. But the spirit is not a piece of software. It is a biological requirement for a horizon. The madness of the red fog has won, not by a sudden explosion of insanity, but by a slow, quiet evaporation of the self. You have built a city that can keep your heart beating, but it cannot keep your mind found. You have survived the poison beneath your feet, the radiation siege, and the low-G dissolution, but you are losing the battle for the horizon. We are the first generation to realize that the most dangerous thing about Mars isn't the environment outside, it's the absence of the environment we left behind. We have traded the messy, chaotic, but sane world of Earth for a perfectly managed, red-tinted madness. But even as we struggle with the rot of the mind, a new and much more systemic danger is forming in the corridors of the colony. We think that if we can just stay sane, if we can just maintain the machines and ignore the red fog, we will endure. But a human being is not an island. We are part of a structure, a hierarchy, a civilization. And on Mars, the very act of survival creates a political black hole that threatens to swallow every human right we have ever fought for. We went to Mars to find freedom, but we are about to find the ultimate tyranny. In the next section, we are going to look at the governance trap. We will explore why a Martian colony cannot be a democracy, and why the person who controls the valve becomes the absolute god of the red planet. Are you ready to see why on Mars, the most lethal thing you will ever encounter is your own leader? We have spent centuries defining the word freedom as a natural right. On Earth, we live with the assumption that our lives belong to us, that we have the liberty to move, to speak, and to dissent because the environment we inhabit is a given. You can disagree with your government, walk out of your job, or move to a different city because the air you breathe and the water you drink are not part of a political negotiation. They are simply there. We are the beneficiaries of an ecological abundance that allows for the luxury of democracy. But as we transition from the madness of the red fog to the reality of building a Martian society, We hit a wall that no constitutional amendment can penetrate. This is the governance trap. We are about to discover why the first Martian colony will not be a bastion of liberty, but the most absolute, unyielding tyranny in human history. By the end of this section, you will understand why the person who controls the valve becomes the absolute god of the red planet, and why on Mars, your every breath is a data point in a system that has no room for human rights. To understand the inevitable rise of the Martian autocrat, we must first look at the commodity of survival. On Earth, we pay for electricity and gas, but we consider air and water to be universal. But on Mars, as we explored in the artificial cradle, every cubic meter of oxygen is an industrial output. It is manufactured, filtered, and pressurized by a complex machine that requires constant maintenance and immense power. This means that for the first time in our history, the very biological requirements of existence are proprietary. They are owned by the entity that built the habitat. In this environment, the social contract is rewritten by the laws of thermodynamics. You don't have a right to life, you have a subscription to air. If you do not work, if you do not follow the protocols, or if you become a burden to the system's integrity, the system has a very simple way to resolve the conflict. It can simply lower the oxygen levels in your residential block by 5%. You won't die instantly, but you will become too weak to resist. This leads to the first what moment of Martian politics, the death of the protest. On Earth, if a group of people feels oppressed, they can strike. They can stop the gears of industry until their voices are heard. But on a Martian colony, a strike is a collective suicide. If the technicians responsible for the water recyclers or the radiation shields stop working to demand better conditions, they aren't just hurting the economy, they are initiating a countdown to extinction for everyone, including themselves. In a fragile, high-stakes environment where a single mechanical glitch can kill an entire colony, any form of civil disobedience is a systemic threat. This creates a culture of extreme, forced conformity. To survive on Mars, you must stop being an individual and start being a cell in a larger organism. And if a cell refuses to function according to the blueprint, the organism has no choice but to excise it. This mechanical necessity gives rise to the technocratic priesthood. In every Martian colony, there will be a group of people who understand the code of the life support systems, the physics of the nuclear reactors, and the chemistry of the perchlorate filters. These are the people who keep the machine mother breathing. On Earth, we have a separation of powers between the military, the government, and the technicians. On Mars, those powers merge. The person who knows how to fix the oxygen scrubber is the government. They are the only ones with the keys to the kingdom. We imagine the leaders of the future as elected officials or heroic pioneers, but on Mars, the leader will be a technical dictator, a high priest of the machine whose authority is absolute because it is tied to the physical survival of the species. You cannot vote against a man who holds your lungs in his hands. This creates the surveillance panopticon of the dome. On Earth, we value privacy as a component of our dignity, but inside a Martian life support system, privacy is a liability. The system must know where every person is, what their body temperature is, and how much oxygen they are consuming at every second. A single person having a mental breakdown in a critical sector, or a single unauthorized person entering a high-pressure zone, could result in a depressurization event that kills everyone. To protect the colony, the governance must be total. Every word you speak, every movement you make, and every biometric spike in your heart rate will be monitored by an AI that is looking for the first sign of human error. You aren't just living in a city, you are living inside a diagnostic machine. The red sickness we explored in the last section makes this surveillance even more aggressive. The colony must monitor your mind to ensure that the madness doesn't turn you into a saboteur. The psychological toll of this zero-margin society leads to the erasure of accountability. On Earth, we have the millennial lag, the distance between our planet and Mars that ensures Earth can never truly govern the red planet. As we saw in Section 5, a message takes 20 minutes to arrive. This means that if a Martian leader decides to seize total power or execute a dissenter, Earth won't know about it until the act is already finished. And even when they do find out, what can they do? They cannot send a police force. They cannot cut off the air because they don't own the machines. The governance trap is the realization that Mars will inevitably become an interplanetary outlaw. It will develop its own ethics, its own morality, and its own laws, all of which will be optimized for the brutal physics of the red planet. We went to Mars to back up humanity, but we are creating a version of humanity that Earth will eventually find unrecognizable and potentially monstrous. Think about the final, most unsettling irony of this trap, the value of the human part. On Earth, every human life is considered to have intrinsic value, but on Mars, where resources like calories, water, and heat are strictly rationed, every human life has a cost-benefit ratio. The governance system will be forced to ask questions that would be considered evil on Earth. What is the caloric return on this individual's work? Is their genetic health worth the 20 liters of water they consume every day? Do we have the medical resources to save this person, or is it more efficient for the system to let them fade? This is ecological autocracy, a world where your right to exist is determined by your utility to the machine. You are no longer a person, you are a maintenance unit. And when you are no longer useful, the machine mother will stop feeding you. The governance trap has won, not by a sudden military coup, but by the slow, quiet logic of the vacuum. You have built a society that can survive the poison beneath your feet and the radiation siege, but you have done so by sacrificing the very thing that made the human species worth saving, our liberty. We have traded the messy, free world of Earth for a perfectly controlled, red-tinted prison. We are the first generation to realize that the most dangerous thing on Mars isn't the cold or the thin air, it's the valve that controls them. We have built a world where the leader is a god, the citizen is a parasite, and the sky is a constant reminder that there is no escape. But even as we struggle with the tyranny of the machine, a new and much more permanent transformation is taking hold in our very cells. We think that if we can just manage the politics, if we can just build a fair dictatorship, we will endure. But a human being is not just a political actor, we are a biological history. And on Mars, the lack of gravity and the isolation of the gene pool are beginning to create a biological divorce. We went to Mars to save the human race, but we are about to watch the human race split in two. In the next section, we are going to look at the genetic drift. We will explore why Martian babies won't be human, and why the children of the red planet will eventually see the people of Earth not as family, but as an alien species. Are you ready to see the birth of the Martian and the final death of the human dream? We have spent our entire history believing that the word human is a fixed definition. We assume that no matter where we go, whether it is the peaks of the Himalayas or the depths of the ocean, our children will look like us, breathe like us, and share the same biological heritage. We think of our DNA as an internal map that remains unchanged by the stars. But as we transition from the governance trap to the reality of the first generation born on Mars, we hit the most unsettling wall of all. This is the genetic drift. We are about to discover why the first Martian child will not be a symbol of hope, but the first step in an irreversible biological divorce. By the end of this section, you will understand why the children of the red planet will eventually see the people of Earth not as family, but as an alien species. and why we are building a future where humanity will literally split in two. To understand the drift, we must first look at the blueprint of the womb. Every stage of human development, from the first division of the embryo to the hardening of the skull, is a process that has been fine-tuned by 4 billion years of Earth's 1G gravity. We are the products of a heavy world. Our cells use gravity as a signal to know which way is up, how to arrange our organs, and how to build a heart strong enough to pump blood to the brain. But on Mars, that signal is 62% weaker. We have almost zero data on how a human fetus develops in low gravity, but the few animal studies we have conducted in space suggest a terrifying outcome. Without the constant, heavy pull of Earth, the architecture of the infant is rewritten. A Martian baby might be born with an elongated spine, a heart that is structurally too thin, and a skeletal system that is permanently porous. We are talking about a generation of children whose very bodies are a physical record of their displacement. This leads to the first wait. What? Moment of Martian evolution, the radiation rewrite. As we explored in the radiation siege, the surface of Mars is a hailstorm of high-energy heavy ions. While the adults huddle in tunnels, the radiation still finds its way through the walls. For an adult, this causes cancer and cognitive decay. But for a developing child, radiation is an architect. It targets the germline cells. It shatters the DNA of the unborn, introducing microscopic spontaneous mutations at a rate that is hundreds of times higher than on Earth. On our home world, evolution takes millions of years to create a new trait. On Mars, because of the radiation and the isolation, we are initiating forced evolution. The Martian settlers are essentially running a high-stakes genetic experiment on their own children, turning the human genome into a mosaic of errors that will be passed down for generations. The psychological toll of this biological speciation is a slow-motion heartbreak. Imagine a Martian-born teenager in the year 2950. They look at videos of their ancestors on Earth, people who were short, stocky, and muscular. They see a species that can walk under the open sky without a suit, and they feel a profound sense of genetic envy. But the heartbreak is not just mental, it is physical. Because they were born in 38% gravity, their bodies have baselined to that environment. To them, the Earth is not a paradise, it is a high-gravity hell. If they were to attempt to visit the planet of their ancestors, the return to Earth's gravity would feel like being crushed by a steamroller. Their bones would snap under the weight of their own elongated frames. Their thin hearts would fail trying to push blood against the 1G pull. The children of Mars are prisoners of their own biology, exiles who are physically forbidden from ever touching the world that gave them their names. This creates the civilizational divergence. Within 3 generations, the people of Mars and the people of Earth will no longer share a common reality. They will look different. Martians will likely be taller, paler, and more fragile-looking than any human currently alive. Their eyes may adapt to the dim, indoor lighting of the tunnels, becoming larger and more sensitive to the red end of the spectrum. But the drift goes deeper than the skin. Their immune systems, developed in a sterile, recycled environment, will be fundamentally different from ours. To a Martian, an Earthling is a walking biohazard, a creature teeming with billions of alien microbes that could wipe out a colony in a week. We are building a future where the 2 branches of humanity will be separated by a biological quarantine that can never be lifted. We didn't go to Mars to expand humanity, we went to divide it. Think about the final, most unsettling irony of this drift, the erasure of the home world. For the first generation of settlers, Earth is a memory. For the second, it is a story. But for the third generation, born in the artificial cradle of Section 7, Earth is a myth. They have no biological or sensory connection to the blue planet. Their lungs have never tasted natural air. Their skin has never felt the heat of a yellow sun. To them, the human form on Earth looks heavy, clumsy, and primitive. They will begin to redefine what it means to be human based on their own Martian experience. They will develop their own art, their own philosophy, and their own morality, all of which will be optimized for a subterranean life in the red dust. The genetic drift is not just a change in DNA, it is the death of the human identity. You have reached the stars, but you have lost the man you were trying to preserve. The genetic drift has won, not by killing the settlers, but by turning them into something else. You have survived the poison beneath your feet and the governance trap, but you have done so by sacrificing your heritage. You are the first generation to realize that the most dangerous thing about Mars isn't the environment, it's the fact that the planet is harvesting your children's atoms to build a new species. We have traded the unity of the human race for a scattered collection of biological ghosts. We are the architects of our own obsolescence, watching our descendants fade into a red fog where we can no longer follow them. But even as we watch the human blueprint unravel, we cling to one final hope. We tell ourselves that this is only temporary. We believe that if we can just fix the planet, if we can just turn the red world into a green one, our bodies will return to normal. We dream of oceans on Mars and forests in the craters. We call this the Great Restoration, but as we look at the physics of the red planet, we are about to hit the final, most arrogant wall of our ambition. We are about to discover that the dream of terraforming is a scientific lie told by a species that refuses to accept its limits. In the next section, we are going to look at the terraforming lie. We will explore why you can't fix a planet that has no heart, and why the dream of a green Mars is nothing more than a high-tech hallucination. Are you ready to see why the red planet will always stay red, no matter how many nukes we drop on it? We have spent the last century comforting ourselves with a grand, scientific fairy tale. We call it terraforming. It is the ultimate expression of human arrogance. The belief that if we are clever enough, wealthy enough, and determined enough, we can play the role of a god. We imagine a future where the red deserts of Mars are replaced by lush emerald forests, where the thin, poisonous sky is turned into a deep, breathable blue, and where the frozen permafrost melts into vast, sparkling oceans. We see the time-lapse videos in our documentaries, watching the planet wake up over centuries of human effort. It is the Great Restoration, the promise that no matter how much we dismantle our own bodies or sacrifice our freedom, it will all be worth it because one day Mars will be Earth. But as we transition from the genetic drift to the raw physics of planetary engineering, we hit the final, most immovable wall of all. This is the terraforming lie. We are about to discover why you cannot fix a planet that has no heart, and why the dream of a green Mars is a high-tech hallucination told by a species that refuses to accept its own insignificance. To understand why terraforming is a lie, we must first look at the bucket without a bottom. The central goal of terraforming is to give Mars a thick, warm atmosphere. We imagine releasing greenhouse gases or detonating nuclear weapons over the ice caps to kickstart the warming process. We believe that if we can just get the air thick enough, the planet will hold on to the heat. But here is the first wait. What moment of planetary physics? Mars didn't lose its atmosphere because it was cold. It lost its atmosphere because it is geologically dead. As we explored in the radiation siege, Mars has no magnetosphere. It has no spinning molten core to generate a protective shield. This means that every second of every day, the solar wind, a relentless stream of high-energy particles from the sun, is sandblasting the Martian atmosphere into the void. We are trying to fill a bucket that has had its bottom ripped out by the sun. Even if we could magically manufacture a new atmosphere tomorrow, the universe would begin to strip it away instantly. To keep Mars breathable, we would need to provide a constant, industrial-scale input of gas that exceeds the destructive power of a star. We aren't building a world, we are trying to outrun the sun with a spoon. But let's assume we could solve the shield problem. Let's assume we could build a gargantuan magnetic deflector in space to protect the planet. We still hit the nitrogen wall. This is the silent killer of the Martian dream that most enthusiasts never mention. On Earth, we breathe oxygen, but we don't live on oxygen alone. Our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen. Nitrogen is the inert buffer, the substance that gives the air its weight, prevents our lungs from collapsing, and stops the entire world from becoming a high-pressure fire trap. Most importantly, nitrogen is the fundamental building block of life. Without it, you cannot have DNA, proteins, or plants, but Mars is a nitrogen desert. While there is plenty of carbon dioxide in the ice caps, there is almost no usable nitrogen on the entire planet. To terraform Mars, we would need to import trillions of tons of nitrogen from the outer solar system, harvesting the moons of Jupiter or the rings of Saturn. We are talking about the greatest logistics project in history, requiring thousands of ships running for centuries, just to provide the background noise of our air. The energy required to move that much mass is more than the total energy output of our entire civilization. We aren't talking about engineering, we are talking about a physical impossibility. This leads us to the paradox of the timescale. We live our lives in decades, we build our civilizations in centuries, but planets operate in millions of years. We imagine terraforming Mars in a few hundred years, a sprint to the finish line, but the Great Restoration is a geological process, not a mechanical one. On Earth, the carbon cycle, the process that regulates our temperature and air, is a slow, majestic dance between volcanoes, oceans, and life. Mars has no plate tectonics. It has no subduction zones to recycle carbon. It has no oceans to buffer the heat. If we were to warm Mars, we would be creating a static, unstable greenhouse that would require constant, active management by machines. You wouldn't be living on a planet. You would be living inside a planetary-scale life support system. The moment the machines stop, the moment the maintenance budget fails, or the moment the political will on Earth evaporates, the planet begins to reset to its natural state, a cold, airless graveyard. You aren't fixing Mars, you're just performing a $3 trillion CPR on a corpse. The psychological toll of the terraforming lie is a generational betrayal. We tell the pioneers of the genetic drift that their suffering is temporary. We tell the children with the glass bones and the elongated hearts that if they just keep huddling in the dark tunnels, their grandchildren will one day walk under a blue sky. This promise of the future is the only thing that keeps the social fabric of the colony from tearing apart, but it is a debt that can never be paid. The star children of Mars are being raised on a diet of false hope, believing in a green world that the laws of physics will never allow to exist. This creates a state of existential stagnation. The colony becomes a cult of the future, obsessed with a restoration that is always just a century away, while their actual reality, the gray-brown tunnels and the recycled air, continues to decay. We are building a civilization that is mentally found in a fantasy, but physically lost in a tomb. Think about the sheer, crushing energy gap of this arrogance. To melt the Martian ice caps and release enough CO2 to even begin the warming process would require an amount of energy that makes our entire nuclear arsenal look like a flickering match. We talk about orbital mirrors and greenhouse factories, but we forget that space is cold and the sun is distant. Mars receives less than half the solar energy that Earth does. We are trying to turn a world into a garden using the leavings of a star. Every model of terraforming assumes a level of efficiency and resource abundance that humanity has never demonstrated. We can't even maintain the climate of the planet we were designed for. Yet we believe we can accurately manage the climate of a planet that is fundamentally hostile to us. This isn't science. It is a manifest destiny, complex applied to the stars. It is the vanity of a species that would rather try to resurrect a dead world than face the reality of its own limitations. The terraforming lie reveals the ultimate truth of our Martian ambition. We didn't go to Mars because it was a new world. We went to Mars because we were running away from the old one, and we brought our greatest flaw with us, the belief that the environment is something we own. We have spent trillions of dollars and centuries of human potential to realize that the red planet is not a project. It is a verdict. It is a world that has already had its turn at life, and it has finished its story. By trying to fix Mars, we are essentially trying to rewrite the ending of a book that was closed 4 billion years ago. We are intruders in a graveyard, screaming at the stones to wake up. As the realization of the lie sets in, the Martian civilization faces its final pattern interrupt. They realize that there is no after. There is no blue sky. There is only the tunnel, the machine, and the dust. They realize that the different man from Section 1 was not a pioneer of a new world, but a warning of what happens when you try to stay in a place that doesn't want you. The genetic drift is not a transition, it is the final state. The Martian is not a future human, he is a ghost of a failed expansion. And as they look at the Earth, the only planet in the universe that actually works, they realize that the greatest tragedy of our species was not that we couldn't reach the stars, but that we didn't understand what we had when we were still in the cradle. The lie of terraforming has won, not by failing to work, but by succeeding as a distraction. It kept us working, it kept us paying, and it kept us hoping while our biology was being dismantled and our freedom was being erased. We have built a city in the dark, and we have realized that the light is never coming back. We are the first generation to acknowledge that Mars is not a plan B, it is a dead end. But as the last hope of a green Mars evaporates, a final, much more profound question remains. If Mars is a graveyard and the biology is a prison and the dream is a lie, then why do we still feel the pull of the red planet? Why do we still look at that rusted horizon and feel a sense of destiny? In the final section of our journey, we are going to look at the final verdict. We will explore the philosophy of the speck and the true reason why humanity was never meant for Mars. We will discover that the red planet's greatest gift was not a second home, but a mirror that showed us exactly what we are. Are you ready for the final, heartbreaking realization of the human odyssey? We have reached the end of the red road. For over 2 hours, we have climbed a ladder of increasing desperation, stripping away the layers of the Martian dream to reveal the skeletal reality beneath. We have seen how the very soil of the red planet is a chemical assassin, how the sky is a radioactive furnace, and how the lack of gravity acts as a slow-motion solvent for the human frame. We have witnessed the psychological erosion of the 20-minute silence and the inevitable rise of the autocratic machine. We have confronted the genetic drift, the moment our descendants stop being us, and we have dismantled the terraforming lie, the ultimate fairy tale of our technological arrogance. And now, at the summit of this exploration, we are left with a silence that is deeper than the Martian night. We are faced with the final, most humbling verdict of the human odyssey. It is not a verdict of engineering failure or economic collapse. It is a verdict of biological sovereignty. It is the realization that we are not a spacefaring species in waiting. We are a planetary miracle in denial. To understand the final verdict, we must first look at the mirror of the red planet. For centuries, we have looked at Mars and seen a destination. We saw a blank canvas upon which we could paint a new version of ourselves, humanity too, free from the scars and failures of Earth. But as we have seen tonight, Mars is not a canvas, it is a mirror. When we reach for the red planet, we aren't finding a new world, we are finding the absolute limits of our own. Mars shows us, with a cold and mathematical precision, exactly how much we owe to the Earth. It reveals that our identity is not something that lives inside our heads. It is a symbiotic relationship with a very specific set of planetary conditions. Your heart, your lungs, your bones, and your sanity are not yours. They are leavings of the Earth's gravity, its magnetic field, and its living soil. The worse than you think reality is that you cannot move the human being without destroying the human context. To live on Mars is to realize that the self is a planetary event, and once you leave the event, you begin to evaporate. This leads us to the philosophy of the speck. We have spent trillions of dollars trying to make ourselves planetary backups. We tell ourselves that we must settle Mars to ensure our survival against asteroids, climate change, or nuclear war. We call it interstellar triage. But here is the final wait. What moment of the documentary? The very effort required to keep 1,000 humans alive in a toxic hole on Mars is 10,000 times greater than the effort required to fix the only planet that actually wants us to live. We are like a man who has set his own house on fire and is now spending his life savings to build a pressurized tent in a nearby graveyard. The Plan B mentality is the ultimate distraction from the Plan A reality. By obsessing over the red mirage, we are devaluing the blue miracle. We are treating the most habitable world in the known universe as if it were a disposable asset, never realizing that in the infinite dark, there is no second chance. There is only the now, and the now is a pale blue dot that is breathing for us every second. The final verdict on Mars is that it is a world designed to be studied, not a world designed to be inhabited. It is a geological laboratory that contains the history of a failed world, a warning etched in rust and ice. When we send our rovers and our telescopes, we are reading the biography of a world that lost its way. But when we try to move our bodies there, we are trying to inhabit a warning. The first human to die on Mars will not be a hero of a new age. They will be a sacrifice to a misunderstanding of what a planet is. A planet is not a platform for buildings. It is a biological engine. And Mars's engine stopped 4 billion years ago. You cannot jumpstart a world that has no heart. You can only build a high-tech cage and call it a home until the dust finds a way through the glass or the heart forgets how to pump. Think about the tragedy of the arrival. We imagine the first pioneers stepping out and feeling a sense of triumph, but the reality we have explored tonight suggests a much darker sensory experience. They will step out and feel the weight of the wrongness. They will feel the radiation through their suits like a phantom itch. They will feel the low gravity as a strange, nauseating lightness that tells their brain they are falling through their own lives. They will look at a sky that is the wrong color and hear a wind that carries no voice. In that moment, they will realize that they have achieved the impossible, only to find that the impossible was not worth the cost. They will realize that they are the most isolated living things in the history of the universe, standing on a world that doesn't know they are there and wouldn't care if they vanished. The conquest of Mars is actually a surrender to the void. This creates a terrifying final question for our species. If Mars is a graveyard and the stars are unreachable, then what is our future? Are we destined to live and die in a single cradle until the sun consumes us? The answer is not one of pessimism, but of profound realignment. The lesson of the red planet is the lesson of gratitude. We are the only part of the universe we know of that has woken up and asked, "Where am I?" We are a fluke of chemistry and gravity that has found a way to feel wonder. Our future is not on Mars. Our future is with the Earth. The red planet's greatest gift to humanity was not a second home, but a mirror that showed us the staggering value of the one we already have. It showed us that home is not a coordinate we can reach with a rocket. It is a biological equilibrium we must protect with our lives. The different man from our stories, the one who returned from the stars and found the Earth unrecognizable, is us. We are that man. We are currently looking through the glass of our technology, dreaming of red horizons and alien suns, while the world that birthed us is screaming for our attention. We are the pioneers who have wandered to the edge of the driveway and mistaken it for the edge of the universe. The final verdict of the Martian dream is a message of humility. It tells us that we are not the masters of the cosmos. We are the guests of a very specific, very fragile miracle. And that miracle is not red, it is blue. As the sun sets on our 2-hour journey through the rusted plains of our ambition, I want you to look out your window. Don't look at the screen. Look at the sky. Feel the weight of the air in your lungs. Feel the pull of the earth on your bones. Listen to the chaotic, messy, and beautiful noise of a living world. This is the sensory abundance that Mars will never offer. This is the grace that we have spent trillions to escape, only to find that it is the only thing that makes us human. The red planet is waiting, and it will be there for billions of years. Cold, silent, and indifferent. It doesn't need us. But we need to understand that the worse than you think reality of Mars is the only thing that can teach us how good we actually have it here. The dream of the starship and the colony is a beautiful delusion. It is the belief that we can outrun our biology and outsmart our history. But the universe is a patient predator, and it knows that eventually, every machine breaks and every memory fades. We may one day land on Mars. We may even build our tunnels and our domes, but we will not be the new humans. We will be the exiles of the red fog, a species of the dark, huddling in the shadow of a star that doesn't care about our dreams. The home we are looking for is not across the light years or even the millions of miles to the next planet. It is beneath your feet. It is in the person sitting next to you. It is in the now that we are currently dismantling in our search for a then. The greatest challenge of our species is not reaching another star. It is accepting that we are already where we were meant to be. We are the infants in the dark, reaching for the lights in the ceiling, never realizing that the room we are in is the only one that will ever truly love us. We are the chroniclers of a blue spark in a black ocean. And even if every ship we ever build ends as a rusted relic in a red desert, the effort will have been worth it if it leads us back to this one final realization, that your home world was the only one that ever loved you. Thank you for joining me on this 2-hour exploration into the heart of the red mirage. If this journey has changed the way you look at the night sky and the ground beneath your feet, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to continue building these cinematic bridges into the deepest mysteries of our existence. And the next time you look at the red planet through a telescope, remember, the stars are waiting, but the Earth is breathing. Keep looking up, but never forget to look back. Good night, and may you always find your way home, even when the stars say there is no road back.